In today's video, I'm going to challenge myself to get 3 of my favorite tones using the Boss Katana 100 Mark II. Now, this particular amplifier is extremely popular and it has a million different effects. I don't want any of that. I just want to see if I can dial in a great tone using the top panel. Before we get into it, a huge thanks to Sky Music for the loan of this amplifier. I'm going to try and break this into 3 sections. So we're going to go from my typical blues tone, a little bit more of a crunch rock sound, and then a big lead tone. Here we go. The first tone I wanted to dial in was that typical off-clean kind of tone that's great for blues, rhythm guitar, and also if you want to do any type of chicken picking. Let's have a listen. Alright, I have to admit, this actually sounded pretty great. This tone was pretty simple to dial in. It actually shocked me just how easy it was, and it sounded pretty balanced across to all of the pickups. It was a little bit gnarly on the bridge pickup, but overall, it's a Telecaster. So I used the clean channel with the variation button on, also dialed in a little bit of reverb and turned the booster on just until it turned on. And that really gave me that sweet off-clean tone. Without it, it was just far too clean to my ear. I think this did a really great job. One of the challenges I thought I'd have with the Boss Katana Mark II is dialing in a really chunky rhythm guitar sound that still had a lot of lower mids. So this has more gain than the tone you just heard before. We're gonna jump over to some humbuckers and see whether or not it can deliver the goods. The end result was this actually sounded pretty great as well, I have to admit. It was far better than I thought it would be, but it took quite a bit of dialing in. One of the things I've noticed about the Boss Katana Mark II 100 is you have to turn the treble most of the way down the more gain you use. It just gets a little bit overbearing on the top end and you lose a lot of the oomph on the lows, but this crunch channel sounds really great to my ear. I also used a bit of reverb and a little bit of slapback delay, just using the delay that's built in directly on the amplifier. So you can get these kind of tones just by taking it out of the box and messing around with the controls. Up next, I want to see if I could challenge the amplifier to get the kind of lead tone that I like, while also having a dynamic tone. So as I turn down, it should clean up, and as I turn back up, I want a big lead tone. Let's have a listen. right, let's talk about how I dialed this in. I used the crunch channel with the variation option and some delay and just EQ'd it until it worked. Now, interestingly enough, I cycled through a few of the other channels and I was unable to get this particular type of sound in my head out of any of them, but this was the closest I was able to get. Problem is with the high gain channels, you lose so much oomph and mids. It just gets really toppy and a little bit on the thin sounding side. Except if you turn it to the 100-watt setting and start to crank it up, that's where it comes alive. And that's what I did even on this particular setting. The rest were done on the 50-watt setting, and this was friggin' loud. Look, I was able to get a usable sound, definitely not the sound in my head, but I wouldn't expect one amplifier to be able to do all 3 tones perfectly. So at the end of the day, it did a pretty great job. Let's talk about why I wanted to put this video together. So Dr. Rick, who contributes to the channel, got to play one of these at a jam night, and he said it sounded absolutely awesome in the room. And I went, come on, man, really? He's like, yeah, it was great. I'm thinking about buying one. I was like, you? Play like high-end amplifiers. I didn't expect that to ever come out of his mouth, but I get it. That crunch channel is extremely usable, and you can just dial it in without needing a computer. Now, if you want the most out of this amplifier, it's always best to hook it up to the Katana software, but I really feel like that limits your ability just to play. I like amplifiers I can kind of plug into, or once it's set up, then you can forget it. Now, I owned the older version of one of these with the foot switch, and the foot switch causes more complication in the context of a live situation than without it. So to be able to get a good tone just by dialing it in on the amplifier is pretty great. I also noticed this amplifier feels like it has a bit more spread than the old one. It's just something that I'm hearing after not using one for a very long time. It actually feels good to play as well. With the exception of some of those higher gain tones that sound a little bit on the thin and sort of Weasley side, the rest of the tones I dialed in sounded great to my ear. Catch you soon. See ya.